Dillian the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
So I noticed late last night that there was an article on Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Charles Martin. And I thought, you know what, I've got a little bit of time now. So let's do a little bit of a reaction to it. Now, Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Charles Martin. Is it an interesting fight? It's got interesting elements to it, that is for sure, which I'll get to in a minute. But it's not the fight I was expecting. I was expecting Andy Ruiz Jr. to be fighting King Kong Luiz Ortiz next. The PBC were building up to this fight. This is why Andy Ruiz Jr. had that Chris Arreola fight. This is why Luiz Ortiz had that Alexander Flores fight. They were going to build up to this one. So there's no reason in the world why that fight shouldn't be happening. Charles Martin, he's been called out by PBC stablemate as well in Otto Wallin. So Charles Martin apparently wasn't available for that fight. Now we do know that the PBC, they make the decisions as to who their fighters fight and who they don't. The fighters have very little to no say in any of this, okay? But as far as Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Charles Martin is concerned, there are a couple of interesting elements. I mean, firstly, they're both former world champions. They both have 2 losses on their resume. They have both lost to Anthony Joshua. The other losses that they had, Andy Ruiz Jr. lost to Joseph Parker for the vacant WBO World Heavyweight title in New Zealand. Charles Martin lost on points to Adam Kaunaki. Very, very good fight. If you haven't seen that, I do recommend it. But there's also another element to it as well. Manny Robles is currently the trainer of Charles Martin. Manny Robles was the trainer of Andy Ruiz Jr. when Andy Ruiz Jr. fought and defeated Anthony Joshua and then fought and lost to Anthony Joshua in the rematch. So Charles Martin, Manny Robles wouldn't really take this fight unless they were confident. And who would know Andy Ruiz Jr. better than Manny Robles? Okay, so that's going to have a bit of an interesting element to it as well. Of course, it's an in-house fight, but that's nothing unusual. I mean, this is PBC, right? But would this be the first time that Andy Ruiz Jr. has actually fought a southpaw? I don't actually recall him fighting another southpaw. I mean, he may have done, but off the top of my head, I don't remember it. But either way, it does have some interesting elements to it. But as I said, I was fully expecting Ruiz to be fighting Luiz Ortiz. Would that be a better fight? I mean, arguably, is this another one of the PBC, let's build up that kind of fight? Maybe. Would they have the audacity to maybe put on Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Charles Martin on pay-per-view? Don't put it past them. Do not put it past them. Because ultimately, I mean, if you look at it, is it a risk? Of course it's a risk. Of course it is. I mean, firstly, it's heavyweight boxing. But if you were to do Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Luiz Ortiz, what happens if Luiz Ortiz beats him? Well, that's one of their pay-per-view fighters gone, isn't it? In Andy Ruiz Jr. If Andy Ruiz Jr. beats Luiz Ortiz, then people will go, well, Luiz Ortiz weren't that good anyway, because we always knew that. Because he doesn't fight anybody. It's worrying when your biggest win is in 2015 against Bryant Jennings. That's your best win. But for me, that's probably one of the reasons why they haven't made the fight. There was no reason in the world why they couldn't have made Charles Martin versus Otto Wallin, 2 southpaws. Why not? Maybe we're going to see Luiz Ortiz versus Otto Wallin. That'd be an interesting one. Why not Luiz Ortiz versus, I don't know, Dominic Brazil? But you know that ain't going to happen. It's probably going to be a Luiz Ortiz versus somebody that you've never heard of. That's pretty much what happens. Is Luiz Ortiz that good? Well, let's find out. I want to see. I've been calling for him to fight somebody that's a live wire for quite some time, but for some reason he didn't want to do it. But anyway, Andy Ruiz Jr., Charles Martin, it is quite interesting. It is interesting. I can't hate on the fight, not at all. I do make Andy Ruiz Jr. a favourite in this fight, a heavy favourite. Albeit, okay, he didn't look great when he fought Chris Arreola last time. He even got dropped in that fight. For me, that fight was pretty close, but I do agree with the decision. I thought Andy Ruiz Jr. rightfully won that fight. Charles Martin, I mean, he's got a couple of good wins, but I do think Charles Martin is better than people give him credit for. And I think maybe that fight with Adam Kaunaki shows that he can actually be quite durable. And he is actually a pretty good boxer. He is quite heavy-handed as well. But ultimately, him versus Andy Ruiz Jr., you do have to make Andy Ruiz Jr. a bit of a favourite. But would it be a shock if Charles Martin defeated Andy Ruiz Jr.? In some ways, yeah, it would be. But in other ways, maybe not. Maybe not. But anyway, as I said, there are some interesting aspects to this fight. Not the fight that I was particularly expecting. Where does this leave Dillian Whyte? Of course, Dillian Whyte, he even offered Andy Ruiz Jr. was at $6 million, and Andy Ruiz Jr. turned it down for some bizarre reason. Charles Martin, he's been calling out Dillian Whyte. Again, just wants a payday. So who knows where it's going to leave Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's going to be fighting on October the 30th in the United Kingdom. So not necessarily against an American opponent anymore, with the likes of a Chris Arreola or a Jermaine Franklin. Maybe it still could be, who knows. But the whole point of Dillian Whyte going to America was to fight an American. So who knows what's going to happen with Dillian Whyte now. Who knows. But anyway, that's what's going on. Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Charles Martin. Apparently it's very, very close for a fight in October. Drop your thoughts below. Click thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.